Wow, that's really interesting. So, Doctor, how did the entire data generative ecosystem evolve?
Well, let me admit, we are evolving still. We are just 6 months into this entire space as the project management unit has come into taking this initiative forward. Now we are still finding a niche. Okay, so where is our niche? What we are required to do? Yes, but it's not that that we have not done a thought process. We have not done of going to the to our laboratories and working on this particular thought process of how to blend this entire three piece together. Now to answer your query, let me put three verticals towards the potential data generation sprouts which can come from this particular scheme. The first one is the teacher-centric approach. Now, whenever I'm going to go through these particular pointers, let me talk about the Kaizen approach. The Kaizen approach talks about that if we are going to do the data profiling, and if I'm doing the profiling of, let us say, teacher-centric data, it talks about the four W's and one H, as you call it. So the first W is who? Who is this particular teacher? So for us, when we generate this particular, for us who are driving this scheme, the data which is generated of the teacher is, the details about the teachers are of paramount importance to us. The next thing comes is the location of this particular schools where the teacher is, and the location of the teacher where she is residing is of importance to us. What? The next W comes in for the teacher-centric approach for data generation is the skill set that this particular teacher brings on the table, okay, is of importance, and I will blend this together in my final comments. The next point about the teacher-centric approach is when the availability of the teaching resources for meeting the specifics as defined in the processes and the platforms. Now for us, one of the requirements is that the teachers are the ones who generate resources for us, whether it is the teaching learning resources, whether it is like the delivery of this particular resources to our students. Now when I'm talking about these three W's or the four W's as I'm talking about, it's very important for us, what is the skill set that this teacher has, or what is the gap of this particular skill set that the teacher does not have. Now this is very important as far as the data which is generated for us to look into it and analyze, can we or does that particular teacher requires a skill upgrade? If not, if the teacher as a resource has already got a good set of skill upgrades, can I take this to becoming like a master trainer or a resource generator that can be used by the state to maybe help other teacher friends of theirs, as we call it as peer learning, or maybe generate some teaching learning resources for usage of this particular students. That's what brings me to the last part about the H. That means the how part in the teacher-centric approach. Now here we are talking about, as I just talked about, is the skill gap mitigation. Now this is something very, very important for us, because we are not talking, in this scheme we do not talk about getting an agency to drive the curriculum. We are talking about there is a lot of resource, that means the teacher are a good resource for us, and they have to be motivated enough to create resources. When I'm saying resources, we look at it in this particular context would be the data, and this is very important. So that is how we have thought about the teacher-centric approach as far as the data generation goes. Let's talk about the second approach, about the student-centric approach. Now, when I'm talking about the student-centric approach, again I will go through the four W's and one H. Now, who is this particular student? Now, we are very clear, this scheme talks about that the targeted students are from class 6, 7, 10, 8. Now, where are they coming from? We are also clear about this because they are coming from the state-run government institute, that means government schools, as well as the aided, government-aided schools. What are these particular students going to be doing? Here, we know what kind of a curriculum, the syllabus which has been revised on the topic of robotics and coding, or maybe I'll let me put it more broadly on collaborative, on creative learning, logical thinking, on mathematical thinking, on computational thinking. That's the thing, like as objectives which these students have to learn through this curriculum which has been revamped. Now, there is uniqueness here. When I'm talking about the curriculum. The curriculum has got two parts. One is the regular curriculum, which is going to be driven for all the students, okay, during the normal school delivery. And there is another one which is called as the advanced curriculum. Now this advanced or the optional curriculum, as the word optional says, this will be driven during the non-school hours, but only for motivated and selected students. And that's where, which I want to stress out, is that's where the data which is generated from this particular motivated students is of paramount importance to us, as what I had said about the three P's, the people part of it, the student being the crux of this entire initiative. Why? Because if I am going to concentrate on these particular students and know that this is an asset for the state, then it is bound for the PME or for the government to basically drive the students on a directed path. Maybe have some kind of a journaling for the students, have kind of a profiling for the students through this, through the initiative of the activities the students go through the academic career, so that we have got a career path for them. Okay, and this is one of the thought processes. This is one of the unsaid things, okay, which is going to come up in the near future. And how do we do this? The last part, the fifth part of the student-centric approach is we are working on the delivery on a hands-on model. Okay, the pandemic somehow has tied our hands because we wanted to do this hands-on model. But anyway, like, you know, I mean, so what is this hands-on model like we are talking about? Is we are looking into a project-based, a skill set-based combination. That's the reason why, if you had paid attention to what I had comments I had made earlier, the curriculum itself has got competitions and hackathons that encourage peer learning kind of a mechanism. The third part, okay, is on the coordination team, that is the project management team. Now this entire initiative, which is driven by the Director of Technical Education, this necessitates that the generation of the correct processes and platforms. So data is being generated. Do I have the correct processes? Do I have the correct platforms to blend this entire thinking into what you just talked about, the smart city as a data generation which can be used, because this data which is generated is from the public funded initiatives, and this has to be used, as I had said, for different kinds of researches, or maybe it should be used for the public use. And that's where in the processes part of it, we have the PME unit. When we define the process and the platform, we talk about, can we have a data analytic approach? And this is what we have already tried also. And towards this particular data analytic approach, we use this maybe through tools like the rubrics, okay, which is coming through, to select resources which is going to be driving different initiatives as part of our curriculum delivery. The next data analytical approach is, can I have from my trained resources of teachers who are there, who are maybe have got a good enough skill set to deliver certain things, can I have a right composition of these particular teachers? This also is a data driven initiative. And the next part is, can I have a calendar towards the objective requirement and tools towards the delivery that would give a resource, a master trainer kind of a mashup. What resources you have got, when to be deployed, how to be deployed, so that, like, you know, this entire mashup is used towards delivering this entire calendar in a proper, well thought scientific manner for all the stakeholders who are there. Now, let me talk about the generation of the data which is here is huge, and which requires that we have to look into profiling this particular data which is generating. We require to look categorizing of this particular data, because that's where all this data which is generated have to be accessible in a more public oriented manner. Because it's not that, like, you know, that whatever initiatives, as somebody had rightly put it, you know, to gather data is a challenge. But to use data, it's much simpler, because you got tools which you can use. But when you got to gather, that's where you spend the money. So for us, from the very beginning, is the data generation is of paramount importance for us. And we have used, and we are going to be using in the near future, appropriate tools and platforms. Now coming to the platforms, it is not that we have gone too far, but on our own initiatives as a nascent kind of activity, we've already got the caresgoa.org platform, the portal that we have launched in this particular scheme. And we are thinking about having a LMS which is going to be blending all these things, because we require to know all the stakeholders to come together to know whether the delivery of what is promised to be delivered is actually going to the lowest unit. That means to that particular student, maybe in whatever school or whatever village that particular student comes from. Now, this is where the LMS, we have not developed it, but the LMS would be of importance to us to drive this entire data-driven approach. Okay?